This conference will now be recorded.
Now I'll open the floor for any public comment. Is there anybody in the room who wishes to provide any public comments? Is there anybody online, Hope?
Not yet.
There is no public comment online either. All right. Seeing none, we will move to agenda item number 3, which is the staff update. This is pages 6 through 8 in your packet. If you grabbed it on the way in, it's also displayed on the screen for those in person and online. As you can see, the upcoming KTMPO meetings are listed. Those are all in-person meetings. They will have a virtual option to view, but not and speak, but not actually be counted toward the quorum, since they're in-person meetings. Other updates that we have, our federal certification review. I've been talking about this for the past few months. We finished that at the end of last month. We expect the preliminary results. We finished that at the end of May. Those preliminary results are typically delivered within 60 days. 60 days here in the packet. I anticipate probably a little further out due to everything that the federal highways has going on during this time. During that review, just to share some information, Federal Highway shared a concern that in our UPWP we have, I think it's 5 special studies that are listed as special studies. The intent of that was to be placeholders. Federal Highways doesn't like that. They like us to tell them what the studies are going to be, even though they did approve the UPWP. They came back and said, we don't really like that a whole lot, so if you could go in and make some changes to that. So that'll be upcoming in the next few meetings. We'll be trying to determine some special studies and then possibly move around some other funds within the UPWP that I'll be talking about, I believe, a little later in the staff update. Our TIP and STIP updates, the February quarterly revision of the 21-24 TIP was approved by the Federal Highways, and the May quarterly revision is currently under review. Due to the delay in previous approvals, projects for the 23-26 TIP have not yet been submitted to TxDOT Federal Highways or the FTA for review or approval. And we're going to continue monitoring this process and provide updates as they become available. Officer elections for the policy board, just so everybody's aware and you can take back to your policy board members. Those are scheduled to occur at the September policy board meeting. So if your elected officials have an interest in serving on the policy board as an officer, please submit that interest to me, just so we don't get up here in September and I'll tell the policy board the same thing and say, hey, surprise, who wants to do it? And there's a bunch of 4 nominations, and somebody that may not find that position appealing ultimately and end up with it. So we try to avoid that. We're currently still working on the Bell County Thoroughfare Plan, which is part of our UPWP. We anticipate that'll be done October, November timeframe. Safe Streets and Roads for All. This is a new funding opportunity. I've sent out a couple of emails about this. I'm sure you've seen it on the news and other outlets. That NOFA was released on June 15th. We have a resolution in this packet to discuss about KTMPO submitting a joint application with SITCOG as a multi-regional project. In all of the calls that we have been on, they've said regional and multi-regional projects will have a better outlook potentially. They're not going to say the upper hand, but potentially a better outlook for those. Some additional funding, the National Electric Vehicle Program. I sent out an email that was sent to me by TxDOT last week or the week before about this program. It included a link to the state's the draft electric vehicle infrastructure plan. If you didn't receive that, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to send it back out. But it contains a lot of good information and an interactive map for people to get in and kind of suggest where they thought charging places might be beneficial, because we know our communities better than they do at the state level. We also met with TxDOT. They just basically went over the plan with us and said there will be more forthcoming as they go through the process. The carbon reduction program, that's a new program that's also coming out. KTMPO is looking at a direct allocation for fiscal year 22. There are 2 direct allocations for KTMPO because we have the Temple UZA and the Killeen-TMA. The allocations are listed in your packet. Temple is $287,924, and Killeen is $693,228. Staff are still going through all of that information to kind of see what kind of projects we could have that are already in the plan to move forward with this funding, but we'll be, as we go through that process, letting everybody know and reaching out as we need to. As I mentioned earlier, UPWP updates. There are new planning emphasis areas that have been set forth by Secretary of Transportation that need to be included in the UPWP next time we update it. We typically already have planning emphasis areas. These are revised, so we'll have to include those in our new UPWP. We have a 2.5% requirement to provide safety planning on our UPWP dollars. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to possibly look at moving some of the funds from the special studies we have set aside. I'd like to possibly bring more staff on so we could reduce the need to go out to consultants for special studies and provide some of our own internal planning activities into addition to what we already do, and then possibly the designation of whatever special studies are left or what people may see as a benefit to the region for additional special studies. And then the Textile Highway Safety Infrastructure Improvement Program. We anticipate this program announcement to be in September. I believe we were going to try to get them on the line today, but they were unavailable. These are projects meant to significantly reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries on public roads. This is a matching program with 90% federal, 10% local. And then there's a link for additional guidance and information on that program in your packet. The final thing I have for the staff update is the air quality report, which showed 62 parts per billion and 58 parts per billion, respectively, for the areas that were being monitored. That being said, any questions on the staff update? All right. Seeing none, agenda item 4 is an action item regarding approval of the minutes from the May 11th, 2022 meeting. This is pages 10 through 12 in your packet. Are there any questions, conversations, revisions needed to the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion from David Williams. Second. And a second. Good. Bobby Lewis. I froze. Okay. A motion and a second, and Hope is still trying to learn everybody's name. So if you could identify yourself in case I have a brain confusion thing happening here, so she can make note for the minutes. That would be great. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right. Agenda item 4. As I mentioned in the staff update, we were bringing a resolution to recommend approval to the policy board. So this is a discussion action item regarding resolution 2022-07, supporting KTMPO's application for a Safe Streets and Roads for All Action Grant Plan. This is a new program I just spoke about. It's due in September. We're trying to get all of our ducks in a row. Staff are currently working on this program while we get everything signed and ready to go. Our anticipation is that this would pass, and then we would take another resolution to the SITCOG board for approval. Like I said, for a joint multi-regional application. So everybody's aware, we're looking at asking for possibly $2.5 million for the entire 7-county region. I do believe Coriel has taken action to do their own thing, but we're still going to ask for the 2.5 to be supportive of Coriel, to cooperate and coordinate those efforts should they get awarded, and then if not, possibly allow them the opportunity to come into the fold if they're not awarded, just as a backup, a caution, if you will. But what we have in front of you is the draft resolution. I believe it includes everything that they're looking for. The call for ultimately 0 fatalities. The one thing that's mentioned in here is the match. We do not have a determination or formula for the match yet. We're still looking at possible ways to recommend the 20% match and how it be funded by the jurisdictions that hop on board with this multi-regional effort. With that, I will open to any questions, discussion, conversation, recommendation. Anyone? Okay, I do have a motion to recommend approval from Bob Van Til. Second. And a second from Jason Beckman. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay. Item number 6. This is a discussion and action item regarding amendments to project N40-05 FM439 Spur connectivity in the FY 21-24 TIP and 2045 MTP. This is pages 18 through 22 in your packet. As everyone in this room is aware, construction dollars have increased. Inflation is really hitting everybody in the pocketbook. You will see in here a letter from the city of Nolanville. They are requesting that due to inflation costs, that the board consider increasing the dollar amount that was awarded to Nolanville for their construction. Is Kara online?
Yes,
I'm online. I couldn't be there in person.
I don't know why it's only coming through the computer. Hold on.
Can you hear me better now?
And while we're getting where Kara is at, just so everybody knows, I know construction costs and approving increased costs mid-cycle like this, traditionally, it would be thought of really diligently.
I anticipate that this will not be the only request we see for this, especially after speaking to TxDOT. Victor's going to speak to their inflation numbers later. We do have additional Cat 7 funding that's coming. This is of course Cat 9, but we do have additional funding that's coming through the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed. Of course, we were all hoping to fund a bunch of projects with all of that money. At this time, it looks like due to rising construction costs, some communities may actually be requesting, increasing their requests. So this may not be the first one of these, is all I'm saying, that we see come across here. And if you do anticipate, while we're on this topic, that your construction costs are going to increase, I would recommend that you get that information over to KTMPO staff, and we have some discussions so we can go through this same process. But with that being said, I'll allow Kara to speak to her request if she can.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize that I couldn't be there in person. As Ryan said, when we compared the original OPC for the submission of the application to the current for the 95% plan, it jumped pretty drastically. And as everyone knows, you're not just responsible for the 20% city match, you're responsible for overruns. And so when I calculated the 20% plus the expected overruns, it was a significant amount for a city of our size. And so my request is that we increase the amount of the award, and then Nolanville would still be responsible for our 20% and overruns, but it would just be less of an impact. This would help keep our other project in line too, so we don't have to sacrifice that one. And so that's basically it. Does anybody have any questions regarding the project? One of the things about this particular project, the stipulation for us to get it in the first place was that we had to be ready to let in August, which was a very quick turnaround time. And so we have everything lined up and ready to go. We really want to see this project go through. It will help connect the north side of town to the south. It's pretty important.
And just so everybody's aware, as she mentioned, the let date in August, that we're still working with TxDOT to see how that would work out. We could potentially need to move that to the next cycle, the 23 cycle. If that were to happen, there would be a minimal financial impact to the MPO. I think we lose $442 overall from all of our Cat 9 dollars that has been in the hopper coming up, and it's just ran its cycle. There would be $442 that we would get back total. If not, of course, we would use that 442, but due to timing and the let schedule and the tip stiff cycle, there are things we still have to work through with TxDOT should this be recommended for approval to the policy board.
So you answered my first question. It sounds like if we recommend approval, the money's there.
Right.
Okay, that was my first question.
And to go with that, it's not like we're just sitting on a bunch of money. We have money in our Cat 9 funds. We don't have enough money that we would have brought you a whole nother project.
Right.
So it's not enough to even partially fund another project that's in our listing, but it's enough to cover this.
So my other question, and Kara, this is for you, an appointed question.
Okay.
If the board, TAC and policy board says no, does that sacrifice this project or the other project because you'll have to move money around? In other words, do we risk losing this project off the MTP because you simply don't have the money?
I think what we would be forced to do is to see if we can reduce the scope on the other project.
And then that we would also have to work with TxDOT because, of course, that's a Cat 7 project.
Right.
And this is Cat 9.
Mm-hmm. Another significant thing about both the projects is that the goal was for TxDOT's going to rehabilitate the entire spur so that the city can take it over eventually, so that we can get the heavy truck traffic off the roads. And so our part in this was to have these projects go through to do the walkability portion.
Any other questions? KTMPO staff work here. Anybody online have any questions?
How critical is it that it needs to be inspected?
I think because of how we have to work everything through TxDOT, I think it would be very beneficial to either, recommend approval or not. I mean, we're probably going to find out more information prior to the policy board meeting. That's just how it works when you're working with TxDOT through this. So in my mind, the sooner we can get the recommendation, the better.
What I'm thinking of is that there's going to be some dominoes that are going to fall because of time. Prices going up, and unlikely to come down. So it's going to
Right, and that's another,
Push the whole plan.
that's another thing I believe Victor's going to speak to a little bit later in his presentation. So the sooner we know about these costs, like Nolensville has let us know, the sooner we can take action to start working toward this. Now, there may be some additional, even by the time everything comes through, some additional inflation that's not accounted for in this, but this is the first step in alleviating this initial boom. Here it is.
All the projects.
I anticipate you're correct.
And I think whatever is decided here today, it's going to set a precedent going forward with these other projects. That's not all.
And I think where I'm coming from, it's recognizing the resources that maybe Temple or Killeen has is different than what Nolan has, or development. It's just the scope of the budget. Who has the ability to absorb that inflation? Okay, sorry about your luck, but you got your own problems. Where it's the smaller cities, can we provide that assistance using that additional state money through what's allocated to the MPO? And I think we have to consider that, make a decision. But I would hate to just say, sorry, you're all on your own, and the grant was the grant, and lose the project. I'd hate to see the project go because we simply couldn't find a little extra money. And I think where the crux of this problem then becomes is defining what's the boundary between you're just asking for a little extra versus this is a major hit. That may just be a judgment call we're going to have to figure out.
Right, and I think that'll be at the discretion of TAC and the board
Yeah.
as they see these come through. But you know, in all fairness of, if you will, the regional program as a whole, I don't think it's best for us to say, well, Killeen-Temple, you got a lot of money, you can just absorb it. I mean, that's not a good partnership either.
Right.
So, yes, you may have some bigger projects that may request some additional, more funding.
Right.
And those can be, you know, Temple and Killeen and whoever may want to speak to. We can absorb a little bit more of this, so we're only requesting a little bit more, but that's, you know, to be made by, a decision to be made by city staff, I believe. If they bring a request
You know,
forward.
the scale of it, you know, 700,000, 900,000 versus, you know, a $10 million
Right.
project.
Exactly,
That's a very different conversation.
right.
Jason, you're getting to something else too. Something you're on and I talked about is the potential of losing the project. You know, cost estimates don't really come into play when you're ranking the project. So if you were to rank these projects today based on the 900,000, it would still be ranked where it is. So we're looking at doing right within not to lose the project.
Right.
That's
Right.
Yep. Agreed.
I think it's an important project, that's obvious because of the way it's ranked. What I'm thinking of is in terms of, is there a plan to anticipate how we manage this hyperinflation that we're having to deal with? It's nothing new, of course, we've always had to deal with
Right,
inflation.
and
This is hyper.
right, I think, you know, staff are trying to work through this as we go. And of course, this is the first, you know, you can see the actual numbers, 41% inflation to this project alone. So, you know, I think these are the types of numbers we need to kind of implement. If you have numbers, increases in numbers, if we can gather that information and then we can say we have some type of plan. We can't, I don't think it would be prudent to say, well, we have a plan just to fund all these projects, whatever they come in, you know. Right now, the plan, if you will, would be to entertain all project requests that come in.
And sometimes we run out of money.
Right. Possibly, right.
Yeah.
The other downside is, you know, all this additional funding that KTMPO is going to get, instead of funding a bunch of new projects as we typically would through the cycle, you know, this offsets what we've already prioritized and sent through, and maybe we only get one or two projects as opposed to 10 or 11, you know. That these monies absorb the inflation dollars that they're costing.
wondering if we could sort that model or something to see what impact that would have and what we would, how it would shrink the model. That's what I'm suggesting. We just, wait another 30 days, see how that works. So put this on for 30 days and see the kind of on a more broader perspective. Victor's going to talk about something very important here in a minute. And we probably need to hear that. We probably need to spend a little time looking at our projects and see what this hyperinflation is doing to it. And what's the bottom line?
What it looks like financially,
And everybody's going to have the same challenge.
Right.
Everybody.
right.
And it's like, we're going to take it piece by piece, I have
Well,
no issue.
and that's, I
I've
think a
got
lot.
no issue with Carrie's project, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to depend on project readiness, let dates, and where the project scales are. And I, just for the sake of time, because she's still looking to let this in the 22 cycle, I think we push it. There would be no way we could even try to get it in the 22 cycle. I could be mistaken.
Can we push the motion to the end of the meeting after?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
And then that might open some eyes and shine some light on some of this.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to make a motion to bring this back following agenda item, was that 9?
Would that be a motion to table until? Trail. Motion to trail.
Yeah. Did you have something, Brian?
Yeah, I have a comment. I don't know if it's going to get tabled, we'll worry about it later. But I think 2 points that I've got echoes a lot of what has been said. We're experiencing the same costs for our materials, for our contracts, maybe 50% or even more. So I've had to face the same things probably everybody else in this room is, what do you cut? What do you got to keep going? What do you got to cut? So Kara said something about this, you may have to scale back, and I think that's what I'm ended up having to do. It's nothing against the little cities and the big cities, it's just life. The other thing is, it's just like you said, if we set a precedence and we do one, then how many times are we gonna go back?
Well, I think we're going to go through it a lot.
And so that bothers me, is we just gotta deal with it. I don't have anything more than that, other than I'm not in favor.
Any other discussion or motion?
Well, one thing I know that affects cities like Nolanville, though, is they also are disproportionately impacted by the lack of tax revenue from the disabled veterans, which is a very vulnerable benefit. Nolanville specifically is one of the worst hit cities in the entire state for lost revenue and stuff like that. And so these types of programs and this assistance is really important to those veteran-heavy communities. And so in such a small, relative to the other programs that are funded through the TIP and the MTP, that I think this is an important program to try to offer that community that's a very veteran-heavy community. And when Kara's sitting there trying to balance her budget, she's already doing it with one hand tied behind her back by the state with the benefits that they're getting at this time. And if you look statistically, they actually, I believe, are the worst. They just passed Harker Heights as losing the most proportional of their tax revenue. And this is one way to try to help a veteran-heavy community have a safe, walkable way to get around. And cutting that could, have a disproportionate impact on a small community rather than a large one.
Any other discussions? Was there a motion to trail?
I'll make a motion to trail the item.
I have a motion to trail. Draw lines up. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a motion. And a second, Victor. Motion by Bobby, second by Victor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We will pick it up after agenda item 9.
Agenda item 7 is a discussion only item regarding amending the UPWP to shift dedicated special study funds to administration so KTMPO can hire additional staff. This will be brought back next month. I just wanted to bring it up, like I mentioned in the staff update, for discussion so people could start thinking possibly about what they want to, what special studies they may have in mind. And then my thought is we would probably move about $85,000 to bring another staff or 2 staff people on board to help with some internal planning so we don't just have special studies. Like I said, it's just a discussion item. If you have any thoughts on special studies, I would say you can tell us now, or you can always, communicate that with staff via email, phone calls, text message, however you choose to, and we'll bring those back when we actually bring the recommendations for the UPWP amendments next month. Any discussion on that? Questions? All right. And agenda item number 8 is a discussion item only regarding a presentation on our public involvement dashboard tool that Killeen-Horn has been working with. And I will transfer now over to the folks at Killeen-Horn to provide an overview of our tool.
Thank you, Ryan. So good morning, everyone. This is Dan Mawson with Killeen-Horn. Here with me today is also Ryan. We're going to present today on the latest tool that we've been working with and supporting KTMPO as they develop their data dashboard. This one's a little bit different than the previous ones. So I'll be sharing my screen. Hope, would you be able to give me access there?
I'm figuring that out.
Cool, no worries. I'll talk for a little bit ahead of that. So just to kind of catch up, we've developed some tools. We've worked with the MPO to develop some tools already that help visualize crash data, census data, geospatial data for the region, federally required performance reporting data. What we're going to do here today is we've also been asked to, oh, here we go. Screen. Share. That looks good. Perfect. Thank you. So we've been asked to take a look at the MPO's current online system for collecting public feedback and to propose a couple of different approaches to improve that, add some breadth to that data, the type of data that can be collected. So we want to show just sort of what we've been working on with that right now over the past month or so. So currently, the public comment form on the KTMPO website, I've got pulled up here. There's a bit of a lag. Here we go. See if I can zoom in a little bit. It's a pretty general form at this point. It kind of just asks for a name, email, location related to the comments, and then asks you to leave a phone number and then a detailed message. So KTMPO had asked us to take a look at how to add a little bit more breadth to this form and to make it so that the agency staff that are responding to these comments are able to track a little bit more what comments are coming in and if they need to be addressed, how they're being tracked and logged and addressed. So I'm going to show that system today. What you'll see is that this is just a test form. It's not something that's going to necessarily be the final wording for all these questions, but we just essentially are developing an architecture that we're going to allow or teach and train KTMPO staff on how to use, so if they need to make custom forms for specific efforts, they can easily do that and follow this general format that I'm going to show about today. So I'll wait until it pops over here. This is the general test form. It uses the Microsoft Forms and Microsoft tools, so available to all KTMPO staff and generally available across all platforms. This is the form page that we have set up here. So this would be the view that you would have if you were KTMPO staff looking at it. You can switch over really easily to the responses page as well and take a look at the responses. These are all test responses, so mostly Killeen-Horn staff have been testing this out, showing it out, but different summary statistics on each of the questions that come in for if you're looking over the course of getting feedback on a specific document, what have the responses been like. But the one thing that we've done here is I'll go ahead and quickly fill out this form, just to kind of leave a sample, switch over to the preview and leave a sample here. But you can fill out this form. So when you'd be able to embed this, this would be embedded, imagine, on the KTMPO website. And so if I wanted to fill out a form and leave a comment, how I'd like to be contacted, email, it asks me for my email address. You can set up logic so that certain questions appear or disappear depending on what the previous responses are. And then you can specify a subject. And so what we're able to do with this is, depending on what the comment's related to, right now the KTMPO form that's on the website just goes to a general email that you know, as staff changes, folks change, folks may not necessarily know where that email goes. So we're going to be training KTMPO staff on using this tool, and depending on the subject that's chosen here, the comment that's received and a notification about the comment that's received will go to the person that's responsible for working on that specific thing. So for example, if I wanted to leave a comment on the congestion management process, I could select that. You know, I could just leave a zip code, or I could say, I don't know, the location does not apply, and then, you know, just leave an information on what the comment or question or message is. So traffic is bad on 14. Say that. And what will happen is you'll click submit, or someone can click submit, and what will happen is that they'll get a confirmation that the form response has been logged. If you come back here, you'll see that before there were 10 responses, now there are 11, so it's been logged here as well. You can also pull up the responses in, let's see if I can find it here. So the responses are also available in aggregate on the back end and an Excel sheet. So if I'm a KTMPO staff member, what will happen is I'll have access to this Excel sheet here. That keeps a running track of all the comments that are received. So I'll go over here to this tab. The responses tab shows for each of our comments. For each of our comments, all of the responses, who left their information, how to contact them, and that's what's all in these blue columns here. And as part of this Excel sheet, when respondents go into this Excel, there are going to be a couple of additional columns that are provided as well that will allow for action tracking. So for example, if there's a comment that requires a response to a citizen, you'll be able to keep track of whether that comment's been addressed, what action was taken to respond to that citizen, and which staff member was able to carry out that response. Or if it were a system where you wanted to assign a staff member to respond to a comment, they could do that way. And then there's also just a little summary tab here that sort of in a similar dashboard format, kind of for a given response form that folks will want to send out or post, you can see quickly, okay, what are folks commenting about? What's the most common thing that's being discussed? What zip codes are being mentioned? What sort of response information is going through? So just some summary information on how responsive folks are on addressing these comments. So the last thing I'll pull up is by now, let's see, maybe it hasn't come through yet. Oh, here we go. It just came through, perfect timing. So this is the automated email. Right now it's sent to go to me because we have that set up in the software. But what will happen is whoever is receiving that email, who's managing the congestion management process input, will get an automated email sent out when a form response is submitted, and just has some basic actions about that email, and then links them to that online Excel spreadsheet where they can track and make a response there. So the idea here, again, you kind of saw the questions are a little bit general in nature right now. The idea here is not so much that, you know, we might have a static, just general response form, but we're going to be working with the MPO so that staff are familiar with how to use this system to make customized response or input forms that they can then track and respond to as y'all are updating different documents or going through different public engagement processes. So that's the quick download on that system that we've set up, and happy to answer any questions if folks have it.
Do responses have to be put in two places? Because there was a responses online and then there's responses in the spreadsheet. Do they copy and paste?
Sure, so.
Or is there an auto script that's run to kind of post it in both places?
Great question. So there's an auto script. So this is and again, I apologize for the lag here. I'm a little bit ahead on my screen. So what you're seeing here is essentially the KTMPO staff view of the internal Microsoft form. So this is where you can actually build, add a new question, do different things here. So when folks respond to this, they'll actually see this view. It's slightly different. This is the response view. Just a second, it'll pop up. There it is. So when folks put a response in here, it will automatically load both to that KTMPO staff view on the form, and it will automatically push that response out to the Excel at the same time. So you won't have, there's no copying over between those two. It's just two different ways to look at the same batch of data. So I think in terms of the benefit of the Excel sheet is it allows for that action tracking. You can add other columns. So if there's other things you don't want to track, you can do that. Or it's just adding responses, adding that. We need to come back to this later. You can't necessarily do that when you're just in this view. You just basically get a summary of the responses and what's here. And so yeah, this is what I was trying to look for earlier. So from this response view, you can also go straight to that Excel sheet. If you click down here on this open an Excel button, it'll take you just to that that worksheet that I was showing earlier. So
Gotcha.
It's all linked together, but it's all through Microsoft, so it's using that SharePoint site that we've been working with you all on to store all the data for these other tools.
So Dan, it's constantly appending the responses to this spreadsheet and updating those graphics.
Correct. And so right now, as you kind of saw with how the form has been set up, it's sort of a catch-all. So you can respond to the MTP in here. You can respond to bicycle pedestrian livability. You can respond to a comment on the website or on a public participation plan. But again, as part of our scoped activities for this work where we're supporting the MPO, we're going to be putting together a training manual, doing a couple of tutorials, sitting down with KTMPO staff. So the goal is that, this is Microsoft Forms, it's all Microsoft based, so you're not going to have to download any special software. It's available through the standard Microsoft Office suite. So
I have to teach you SQL language.
I'm going to have to teach myself SQL language. But yeah, the idea is we want to keep this something that's simple enough for that and anybody can use with not too much training. So that's the idea of why we want to go with this approach. And again, trying to keep it all within the Microsoft suite that's widely available to staff.
Right.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions, comments, recommendations? Was there anybody online that had any feedback? Oh. All right, well, the link for that is in the packet and in the information that James sent out yesterday and last week. If you'd like, feel free to go in, play around with that and provide staff any feedback you may have so we can relay that. Once again, thank you, Dan, for your work on this. And seeing no further discussion on that, we will move to agenda item 9, which is a discussion item. This is an update from TxDOT on major construction in the KTMPO area and project planning development updates. This is pages 28 through 42 in your packet. And I will, whoa. I feel like I'm in the 80s. And I will transfer this off to Stephen and Victor. I don't know how you guys wanted to do this.
Y'all have the slideshow here?
Yeah, I have. Okay. It should be in the packet. Oh, there it is, yeah.
Do I need to go up there and speak, or?
You can speak right there if you'd like. Okay. Well, wherever you're more comfortable.
Yeah, I'll go. All right, so a little update on our construction projects in Bell County. I know I'll start off by saying that if you don't already know, there are very real supply chain issues out there. We're experiencing them every day. To the projects, I don't believe I've included them on the packet. They just had 3 construction meetings. One of them is a cable barrier project on State Highway 36 and Loop 363. The cable company that supplies that cable, there's only one in the country, I believe, that produces that cable. The lag time is 18 to 24 months before we can get it delivered. So we're going to have a pre-construction meeting this week with that contractor to find out what their plan of action is. I believe that other projects, they've placed the riprap O-strip and then just let it sit until they're ready for the cable, ready to get the cable. So we'll try to keep y'all updated on that. And during these meetings, I'll let you know. Concrete's a very big issue right now as far as supply is concerned. I know some contractors and subcontractors are waiting 4 to 6 weeks to get material if they haven't already ordered it. So that's an extreme. The contractors that are on their supply, they're actually able to get the supply they need. We haven't seen any delays with contracts due to this, but they're having to think a lot further out in advance in their work plan for that. So it's just a game that everybody's playing. I know that some contractors, some subs that are coming from out of town, they're being told to keep calling back each day to get their concrete supply. So if you haven't already experienced that, be prepared. The contractors, in the past, sometimes someone would say, "Oh, we're having, material supply delays," and you question whether it was right or not. We're definitely seeing that, and it's definitely real. So on with the update on the construction projects. So the industry campaign, I'll just mention this real briefly. We have not had a deathless day on Texas highways since November 7th, 2000. Right, Victor? 2000? Is that right? Okay, so 22 years, going on 22 years. We really want to strive for safety. If there's things out on our construction projects, especially if there's something you see, if there's somebody in the community you see something that has a problem, please let us know. I try to take those very seriously and try to handle them as quickly as possible, because if somebody's saying something, I'd like to make sure that either I can confirm or deny and handle that situation, so I can try to at least prevent these on the roadways that I have responsibility over and try to address them as issues come up. So the first project is State Loop 121. This project is going very, very well. It's on time. We have the phase 2A being shifted right now as we speak. They're doing that shift at night, get into that phase of construction. The phase 2A is just the project moving all the traffic from the existing main lanes to shifting it further west so that the east side of the roadway can be constructed. The contractor's doing a really good job of that. I drove through it right before I came here. Everything looked really good. So they're moving along, and by the end of the week, they should have all the traffic shifted from 439 all the way to I-14. So they'll be reconstructing the east side of the road, or the east side of the roadway next week. Next slide. So here's some of the work they've done. The contractor's been really proactive, and they've gone and done some work that's out of sequence to try to advance the project and speed it up whenever the time does come for setting beams and getting the bridge expanded. So they actually performed drill shaft operations and constructed the columns and vents on both sides of the bridges there at Nolan Creek and then BNSF. So again, they're being very good partners with us, and they've kept the project very, very clean. So this just shows what phase 2 is at, I believe it's at Sparta Road, but the work should be completed in the fall of 2023, so it'll be in this configuration for about a year. Next slide. So the next project is a turnaround at FM 2410 at Ninth Way. We're getting ready to open that bridge up to traffic. They're doing the last remaining bits of work on that contract. They're just doing a bunch of punch list items and installing sod and signs and things of that nature. As soon as they can get that bridge painted, we're going to have it open up. We wanted to make sure that it was completely finished before opening up, so we didn't have to have intermittent closures of that turnaround. That way the public, once they start using it, it's done, ready to go. So like I said, by the by the end of this month, that bridge will, the turnaround will be open. Nolanville Lighting Project, this project is one that is behind on construction. However, the contractor is getting closer and closer to opening these ramps up. We're working with them to get the main lane stripe in the final configuration so they can complete the removal of the existing ramps and get traffic on the new ramps as they're supposed to be. The last remaining bit of work, we have some work that's in the creek channels, and then final surface needs to be placed as well. So we're estimating completion should be sometime late winter this year. If the temperatures get down low enough to where we can't place SMA, it will push it into the spring, but the traffic should be in the final configuration before then. The Beltline Lighting Project, this project is on schedule, and they're making very good progress on the ramp reversals. On this one, the next ramp reversal we plan on having is going to be the ramps eastbound between 1670 and Loop 121. Those should be opening up sometime around the first week of August, and they have completed most of the work on most of the ramps. So the only thing that the contractor will have to do as we start opening ramps and moving traffic and shifting traffic to be able to get the tie-ins at the frontage road at the main lanes where the existing ramps are. So they'll remove those sections of pavement, get the new ramp built, and open those up a little bit more quickly now. There won't be as much time for the opening or closing of the ramps and then opening up the new ones from this point forward. They have 2 ramps that are out down at George Wilson. We call them, they're the entrance and exit ramps. They're both being constructed. Retaining walls are both being constructed on those. That's the only thing. It's taking a little bit longer on those 2 ramps, but they are making very good progress on it as well. That project is final surfacing. We're expecting as early as fall of 22. So this fall, we could see final surface going down the westbound main lanes. We don't know, depending on the contractor's paving operations, if they're going to be able to schedule it or not before it gets too cold to place that final surface. It's a specialty mix. So the temperatures have to be 50 degrees higher. So we need to make sure that they can complete everything they need to be at least one full direction completed, one eastbound or westbound completed, so that we don't have half of a portion of the roadway overlaid and then have to wait till spring and temperatures come back up. The Rogers Bypass Project, so J.D. Abrams is our contractor on this one as well. They've shifted forces all over to Nolanville to try to get that job completed. That's why a lot of people have questioned whether or not that project is making any progress. They have come to us with some changes to the plans to try to accelerate that work once they get started back again. They have started back out there, and they are making good progress now that they've moved their forces back to that project and continue to work. So primary work out there is embankment and bridges. The overpasses are being constructed, and I don't see any major issues since most of it is out of traffic and out of the public view for the most part. The State Highway 201 Mill and Inlay, the work is beginning now, and we're anticipating to be finished sometime in early fall of this year. It's a pretty simple project. The only thing that's going to take a little bit longer is the Melvin guard fence. They have to close lanes on the frontage roads. We didn't do it all at one time, so they're having to do it in different phases and get those sequentially done. Once that gets done, the paving operation, they're expecting it to take about 2 weeks. So it'll be a very quick process. FM 2115 Rehabilitation and Restoration Project. This one's a little bit different. And if some of the cities are thinking about rehabilitation of their roadways within the city, this is a process that we're starting to use more and more throughout the state. It's called the foamed asphalt rehabilitation. It's kind of like it's kind of the same process as what our traditional cement treatment process is. So it's cement treating existing material and then putting new flex base on and overlaying with hot mix. This one takes a step out. We still treat it with a small amount of cement, and then there's a special piece of machinery that injects foamed asphalt, which is just, increases the volume of the asphalt so that it coats the particles of the roadway, and you can run traffic on it directly, same day. And it's a very quick process too. They were able to get about a linear mile of roadway treated per day, so that once they widen the culverts and get the widening of the roadway itself completed, it goes very, very quickly, which the public seems to like, and we've had a lot of success here in Waco. So if anybody wanted to go out and look at that project or wanted to call us and have us go out and show them the process, me and my staff are very happy to do that.
Hey, Stephen, could you ask, Stephen, did you guys do that on the Spur recently for the failures? Is that the method you use?
No, that's just the mill and inlay. That's a standard mill and inlay of hot mix. Kara, it's Kara, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Kara, we just mill and inlay that with the full depth base repair.
Okay.
And then I was surprised you didn't ask about Patty Hamilton, Kara.
I already knew.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and bring up that elephant in the room. That Patty Hamilton will be opened up sometime, hopefully by the end of this month. We had some additional work that needed to be done on that that bridge. The contractor needed to submit a plan to us, and we're getting ready to approve that plan. As soon as they submit the final plan, we'll be ready to go. The contractor come in there and get the work done, and we're projecting it to be open by the end of July. If y'all have questions about that, most of the citizens around there have found my number. Call me directly, so I don't mind a few more calls. Any questions? So I guess my big statement is this what y'all want to see during these meetings, or is there something in addition y'all want to know? I want to make sure this is as formative as possible, and y'all don't have to listen to me for longer than necessary. But I want to make sure that you're well informed on the issues. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to take answers anytime outside of these meetings. But if you have something specifically you want me to present during the meeting, I'm happy to do that as well. The next meeting, I'll try to have some more pictures to show progress projects. This one, it was a little bit short notice, but I try to get as much information as possible. So, any questions?
No, thank you, sir. I think this is what when staff reached out, this is kind of what we were looking for. Of course, anybody on the tag thinks there's additional information that would be valuable, please let us know so we can coordinate that. We want this information to be as informational, or this meeting to be as informational as possible, and so everybody's kept up to speed.
All right, I guess I'll give it up to the money man.
I'm just gonna say right here, so I was gonna go over these 8 projects that we're currently working on developing, and I'll start off. The first one is FM93 from 316 Wheat Road. This is one of 4 projects that we just wrapped up a procurement on, and I actually have it got a typo up there. It's not Killeen-Temple, that's this project. They got one of the projects in the Clinton County. It's actually Kyle Finley that's going to be working on this one for schematic, environmental, and PSC. It's probably going to take till about January before they get a notice to proceed and actually begin work. And at that point in time, you can expect, if everything goes right, anywhere from 6 to 8 years before we're actually out there turning dirt. So a lot of steps we have to go through on the schematic, a lot of public involvement we're going to have to do. And then, of course, you got to do the actual design work to get there. Next project, we have US 190. This is the code bypass. This is going into the tip for the FY23 UTP coming up. Plans are currently 95%. There's a few small things we're wrapping up. There is a utility issue, a little bit different. It's a private utility that's serving Fort Hood, so we have to jump through a couple extra hoops to get this one relocated right there on I-14. I think we have a path going forward. We should have that relocated within 12 months. It is fully funded, like I said, within this new UTP coming up with Cat 4U and Cat $2. And currently it's scheduled to let in 2025, but I think we're going to have it ready to go. We can offer it up for a 2023 let. TPP division has been asking if we can move it up at all, and as I'm going to talk about inflation here in a minute, the sooner we can let it, the sooner off we'll be. Next project is State Loop 121. This is from I-14. It's a continuation of the one Stephen was talking about, from I-14 to I-35. Schematic and environmental are complete. We need to begin the PS&E, and I think utility relocations may have done a little bit, but
yeah, I think they're most of that.
Even on that section?
So,
Okay, well, that's even better. Right-of-way acquisition's complete, and it will also be fully funded when the 23 UTP comes out in Cap $2. So as soon as we can get PSC provider on board to start that process, we could probably knock that out within a year and a half to 2 years and have it ready for that. Next up is the I-14 expansion. So this is another one of the big projects that we just wrapped up the procurement on. We're currently negotiating with Parsons. It's on the same timeline as the FM93 project and should have notice to proceed somewhere around January of next year. Next project is State Highway 9 access ramps at Tank Destroyer within Fort Hood. This one we have complete PS&E, and I know City of Copper Cove is working with Keith Sled on getting the special construction funding award, and as soon as we get that, we can turn that on. Next up is the State Highway 95 turn lanes. Jason, this is your project. We're going to have it fully funded with Cat 2 and the 23 UTP, as well as it's going to be in the TIP. And City of Temple's overseeing the development of the plans, and it's scheduled to let to go in August of 23. Next project, State Highway 9 at Business 190. That's the new west exit ramp from State Highway 9 to Copper's Cove. To Business 190 westbound. It will also be fully funded with Cat 2 and the FY23 UTP. It's scheduled in 2025, but Bobby, I think we're working on you guys. Y'all might take over development and you need it less sooner. Yes. Okay. And then last of all, we have the State Loop 363, the overpass and main lane construction at Industrial and Lucius McKelvey. Plans are currently at 60%. It will be fully funded with Cat 2 and the 23 UTP. However, it's outside the TIP currently. But that's something we can work on getting into the TIP on the next cycle, hopefully. So right now it's scheduled to let in November of 2026, but like I said, we'll try to move it earlier. Now there's 2 items we're going to talk about that aren't listed here, but before we move on to those, is there any questions on any of these projects that I've talked about so far? Seeing none, I'll move on. So we've already kind of hit on it, inflation and shortages. I know Brian already talked about what they've seen in inflation in the county, and then Stephen talked about some shortages that we're seeing in the construction field. And I'm going to kind of briefly touch on the inflation that we've seen in Texas so far. Last week, or actually I believe it was 2 weeks ago, TPP Division Director gave a presentation to the Texas Transportation Commission on inflation and what they've been seeing in the lettings. And in the month of May, statewide, all of our lettings, local let plus Texas state lettings, they came in as an average of 25% over what everyone was estimating that we would. Seeing that and trying to be a little proactive and reactive at the same time, we, as a district, we artificially inflated all of our district estimates up. Anything that had any items that had steel or concrete, we inflated them about 25%. And then any items that had oil or asphalts, we increased those by 10%. Now come June, it ended up being 6.8% over statewide. And so you might be thinking, well, is that, it's better, it's not 25%. But either that means TxDOT as a whole didn't adjust for this inflation statewide enough, or the inflation's still creeping up, or both. I mean, I would imagine it's probably some of both. It's hard to read a crystal ball. So having said that, I know if we're seeing that, and the county's seeing that, I mean, even on all these local let projects, you're going to start seeing that stuff too. So I guess what I'm asking is, please revisit, update your estimates. And we've seen it with the Nolanville Pats there too from earlier in the meeting. Some other items to talk about, the long lead items for lead time for steel items. Something we're doing that on that is considered an alternative. Stephen mentioned the cable barrier and the lead time on actually getting cabled out there on those projects. So one thing that we're kind of bouncing around is, y'all seen it on these interstate jobs, is the portable concrete barrier. Well, we're about to have a lot of that stockpile up as these interstate jobs wrap up. So one thing we're looking to do is, instead of putting cable barrier, there's actually, you can build a foundation for those and put those out in a permanent configuration off the edge of the roadway versus putting cable barrier out there. It's going to be cheaper than steel. It's an existing product, plus less maintenance overall. Every time a steel cable gets hit, you see it, they really want you to replace the cable, but if you can't get it, then you got to splice in new and do what you can. So yeah, inflation and shortage are out of control, and the sooner you can let the projects, the better off you'll be, and that kind of leads on to my next item I was gonna talk about. And that is Cat 5 and 7 underspending as, in the state as a whole, not necessarily this MPO. We're not in bad shape, but we've been meeting with TPP division, and there is a trend statewide, of some MPOs not spending their Cat 5 and Cat 7 dollars fast enough. Now, obviously, we're not a metro, we don't get the Cat 5, we only have Cat 7. And like I said, we're not in bad shape yet, but I see this as an opportunity in that I'm not speaking for TPP division, but if any of you entities have a Cat 7 project that may be out in FY26, and as long as it's within the TIP, if it's ready to go and we went and knocked on the door to TPP division, I would imagine they would let you let it as soon as possible to account for some of those other MPOs dropping the ball and not spending their Cat 7. So this one asking you, if you have a Cat 7 project out there, develop it as soon as you can, let's get it ready to go, and then I'll do what I can to let it sooner than you having to wait later. And that backs up to the inflation too, because if you do have to wait till FY26 to let it, it's just gonna cost that much more than it cost now. And that's an opportunity between this MPO and other MPOs, but at the same time, it can be an opportunity within this MPO if another entity within this MPO can't let their project as soon as you would like, or as soon as they would like, then we can slip yours in and still kind of take some of that thrown off and get the shadow off the back of the TPP division. So other than that, that's, inflation is bad, let the project sooner is good, develop as soon as you can, that's my message. Any questions on that?
Anybody online have any questions?
Nobody? All right. Thank you, Victor.
I think we're digesting, thinking and strategizing.
It's a lot to take in. I mean, we saw it coming a few months ago, but we've just actually seen it hit the last couple of months. And I haven't gotten July's numbers yet, but I don't know, I have no idea what they're going to be. Hopefully they're good, but with what you're seeing in your personal lives, I don't think it's going to be very good. So,
I did hear in the radio this morning that oil's trading below $100 a barrel, which it has not done for a while. So that maybe is a bright spot. Cross your fingers.
so I don't want to be the harbinger of that news.
All right. Any other questions for Victor?
Well, it's a text item, but is Brownwood going to do a similar thing? Because we have the 195 as goes into an interchange. That's
Right. We have reached out to Brownwood. They weren't available. But we are reaching to get both districts to provide updates.
Is that still in the MPO?
Yeah. All right. Anything else? All right. Back to agenda item 6. Discussion and action item regarding amendments to project M4005, FM 439 Spur connectivity in the FY21-24 TIP. Of course, this was Ocean to Trail, and we will open this item back up for continued discussion. Questions, clarifications, recommendations?
I just had one other comment, Urian, before you guys take potential action is, I know I was asked earlier, like how would I mitigate it myself if you guys decided not to increase the amount? And I think one of the important things to remember is I don't have the luxury of moving this back a few months. We did try that. If that were a possibility, then I could possibly try to fit it in the budget for next year. So hopefully, that helps in the decision making, is the fact that I'm trying to let this in August so we don't lose that funding as an NPO. So.
Like I mentioned earlier, this is all very fluid. I haven't done this before, staff haven't done this before, like she just mentioned. It's toward the end of the budget cycle. But we anticipate seeing more of these. So like Victor said, this could be setting a precedent. But I'm open for any conversation, discussion. As I anticipate, we'll see a lot more of this to come in the future.
So you were saying the money's available now?
We do have the money. My concern, because of the way the tip and stiff cycle is, is working with TxDOT to get it included in the next revision, although they're supposed to let in August. There could be a couple months of play in there where they let in August and we revised the tip in November. That's a potential opportunity. I'm not going to say it could happen or it couldn't. The other option would be possibly to push it back, move the let date to the following year, at which point KTMPO would lose $442 in Cat 9 funding, just because it's been in the coffers for so long. It's exceeded its, I'm losing the term in my head, but it's basically
There's an expiration date.
Yeah.
Well, based on the fact that we have the money now, waiting 30 days doesn't get us there. And so I'll make a motion that we move forward with approval.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Bobby Lewis.
Can I make a comment? Because I think we are setting a precedent. Can I do that when we got an active motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can still have discussion after a motion.
Okay. Because we are setting a precedent. If we don't fund this, because we say, then it opens the floodgates to then throw money all over the place at existing projects. Well, if we don't, this project may suffer, another project may suffer. And we're moving forward with new money for new projects. Why are we assigning new money to new projects when we can't fund the projects that we have on the books? I think if we're setting a precedent and we anticipate that there is money coming from, realms above us, that the precedent is to take that money that's coming and apply it to the existing projects that we've already developed, funded, prioritized, ranked.
And I think that kind of speaks to what Bob was wanting to see, is how we plan to kind of mitigate this if we get a major influx. But we would need that additional info from the cities on your cost estimates to kind of plan that out.
Yeah, so I think the precedent I'm comfortable setting is applying extra money to existing projects to make sure they don't stumble and fall. It's not a question, really, contradiction, just to encapsulate what we're doing.
All right, I have a motion second. Any further discussion?
I would just add just a very brief comment to what you're saying. It's just difficult to manage the inflation along hyper. And we always have a multi-year project, and we pick project costs that are today, if you're comfortable with that, you plug them in and plan for it. After that, it's usually a surprise, if not an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah.
If that's a realistic strategy, so we take the new monies, for lack of a better word, and allocate that to, or at least think about allocating that to hyperinflation, inflation strategy. At least you have a way forward, as opposed to just making this decision kind of in a vacuum. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And we all know what the near future holds too. For us, because Victor's articulated that well, Stephen's articulated that.
Right.
We have challenges, we just don't know what it's be, but we do have to have some kind of way forward to say, we know that this might be a potential situation, and here's what we anticipate. We're getting there. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I hope the rest of the TAC also appreciates that, because I may just kind of depend on that as a reason for helping build a bill, and then also having an idea of what it will do to all of our population.
We will, staff can try to devise some type of strategy. Like I said, I think it hinges on what that is, what it looks like. We have a good anticipation of what our numbers are for the next few years. And we can, of course, bring that back and present it next month, present it to policy board and say, hey, TAC recommended this action. And they asked for a strategy, and this is our proposal right here.
Is that something?
But I think it'll be a continued,
Yeah.
a moving target, if you will.
Is that something that the rest of the TAC was comfortable with? Ryan making one of those things, maybe It's not just Bob's desire. I just want-
No, I think it would be beneficial for everybody on the tech and the policy board to see basically an inflation/hyperinflation strategy on how we're going to utilize funding.
And yeah, as those dollar values change,
Right.
as the punctuation fluctuates, swings back and forth, like you said, Steve and Kaiser were saying, they make phone calls every day just to get concrete. And I've heard that from some of our builders too.
Right.
So we can start formulating a strategy, how we're going to react to which way it's swinging, what's available, who's, where the shortfalls are. If we have some kind of a strategy, then we have an idea how we're going to respond, than to just simply shoot from the hip.
And that's like I said, that's something we can bring back to the policy board and the TAC.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? Seeing none, I will, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, agenda item 10 is a discussion item regarding public input received through June 2022. Next, pages 44 through 46. And we have, we do have one new comment. It looks like it was received May 13th. It was a project on the Coppice Cove down the middle of US 90. 190 is terrible. Didn't ask for it, didn't vote for it, don't want it. Presented to the TAC today. And there you have that.
We get that all the time.
That's the one public comment we have to report on. And agenda item 11, any member comments? Any member comments? Anyone? All right, going once, going twice. I see none. We will adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Yes.
Yeah, can you read it?